evening, I'm Katerina Georgieva. Thanks for joining us. Here's what's making news right now.
Running against somebody fleshes out ideas. It puts the candidate, if I speak to the past elections, it puts the candidate on the spot.
This needs to get nipped in the bud right away. And so fight ugly with pretty is what we decided to do.
Yeah. It's not something you see on the daily. He was so scared, right? So he freaked out and he's kind of slid against the floor and squirmed off.
We begin tonight with the latest on the municipal election in Windsor-Essex. Polls are not open yet. They won't be for a couple more months, but some important positions have already been decided. 2 municipalities already know who their mayor and deputy mayor will be. That's because those candidates ran unopposed for those top jobs. It's sparking questions about why so few people are interested in municipal politics. The CBC's Jason Vio joins us live in studio now with more on this. Jason, how are people in those communities feeling about having no choice for those 2 top positions?
Well, Kat, we went to LaSalle to get a sense of that, and some say they don't really mind because they're on council now and can't be blamed for others not running against them. But others say voters should have a choice. LaSalle and Tecumseh are the 2 municipalities where both positions of deputy mayor and mayor are acclaimed.
We need more people we need them to run against someone, not just get in there and do their thing.
I don't have any problem with it for a couple of reasons, and I know, not that I know them personally, but I know that the 2 of them have been in municipal politics for quite a time.
It's definitely unfortunate that there's not more interest or participation, and that basically no matter what influence or whatever anybody has to say or think is it's going to be really insignificant since it's already decided.
I think it's not fair. I think that people should get their say in who they want to vote for. They shouldn't have to just vote for that one person because they're running unopposed. They should get a say in who they want to vote for.
So in LaSalle, it's Crystal Melash. She's acclaimed to the mayor's seat. She's the current deputy mayor. And Mike Akpata is going unopposed for the deputy mayor's seat there. He's a current councillor. And in Tecumseh, the current incumbents will remain in those roles. So Gary McNamara as mayor and Joe Becchetti as deputy mayor.
So we heard from some constituents there, but how are the candidates feeling about being acclaimed?
Well, Mike Akpata says he's humbled and hopes that it shows his values are in line with the majority of the residents. He's been a LaSalle councillor for 8 years and is the deputy mayor-elect after being recently acclaimed. Nobody ran against him. Akpata says he doesn't view his role on council as a job, but rather a commitment to public service, something he's done almost all of his adult life as a former police officer and his time in the military.
People choosing not to want to go into political life, I understand. If we look at what's going on in the US, if we look at the female prime minister that just had to do a drug test after she was out having some fun, if we look at how people are interpreting what private versus public versus political life is, I understand why some people may not want to be fully exposed, their families and themselves, to service their community.
And Akpata says the fact that nobody else ran against him, for example, doesn't take away from the democratic process. Instead, he says it shows that it worked because anyone could choose to run against him and they had 90 days to do it.
So Jason, why don't people seem to be very interested in running in municipal elections?
Well, that's really the big question here, Kat, and there's a lot at play. It could be people think the incumbent has a good chance of winning, so why bother? Or election fatigue could be a reason, I'm told, coming off of a provincial election in June, which saw the lowest voter turnout ever. Political science professor Lydia Miljan also says you need a thick skin to be a public political figure.
It'll be increasingly difficult to get people to run for a lot of positions, I'm going to put the blame on online media, and then social media. When you speak to people face to face, they're very kind and sweet to you. But something about going on social media brings out the worst in people's, and you can see it on those platforms, just how everything is negative.
Now, Lydia Miljan also says running in municipal elections is more costly than running provincially and federally. That's because she says there are no tax write-offs. So that, combined with election fatigue, having your life scrutinized in the public, and a lack of interest in municipal politics, all play a role in how civically engaged we all are.
Thanks for this, Jason. That's CBC's Jason Vio live in studio with us tonight. And later in the show, I'll speak with Crystal Melash. She's just been acclaimed as the mayor of LaSalle, as Jason told us, the first woman to take on the role. And I ask her about being a woman in politics, what that's been like, and her vision for the town. That's all coming up. A recently painted rainbow picnic table has been repeatedly vandalized in Chatham-Kent. It started after the group Dresden Shines painted the tables. Someone burned pieces of the rainbow. Artists moved fast to repair the damage.
Coincidentally, was having a pretty awful mood day and wanted to do something to make myself feel better. And instead of ruminating, once I found out that there was basically some negative stuff happening in town, it's not usual. And so I was like, this needs to get nipped in the bud.
The repairs were documented and shared on TikTok with hundreds of thousands of people watching and cheering on their restoration work. But this week, it happened again, this time with anti-LGBTQ messages. So they repaired it once more.
It's discouraging. I think that's all that really I was going through, and that need to want to fix it again, just to keep coming back and spreading that positivity.
Here's the newly painted picnic tables in Dresden. Police are investigating the incident as a hate-motivated crime. The artists, they plan to respond with more love and TikToks.
And I felt welcome immediately when I moved here. I fly pride flag proudly outside of my house, and it was just a super shocking thing to happen. And so when we had the opportunity to make it better, we did, and made it way better as far as we are concerned.
Across the border in Michigan now, 2 men have been convicted of plotting to kidnap Governor Gretchen Whitmer in 2020. Adam Fox and Barry Croft Jr. were found guilty of conspiracy to use weapons of mass destruction, a bomb. Prosecutors allege the pair were hoping to spark a revolution by kidnapping the governor. Whitmer, who is a Democrat, was a vocal critic of then-President Donald Trump. Both men could be sentenced to life in prison. The federal government has reinstated the position of Chief Nursing Officer for Canada, and it has appointed Lee Chapman to the post.
I recognize that there is significant work to do from a nursing perspective to ensure that we contribute to an accessible and safe healthcare system for all Canadians.
We're going to be able to count on her engagement, efforts, and abilities to bring people together, because we are going through a crisis and we need to acknowledge it and address it.
The minister says Chapman can provide valuable insight to help design policies and programs. Chapman is a registered nurse with 20 years experience and a PhD from the University of Toronto. LaSalle will soon have its very first female mayor ever. Crystal Melash will step into the job this fall after running unopposed. She was the town's deputy mayor last term, and Ms. Melash joins me now. So first of all, congratulations. How does it feel to be the first woman to do this?
It's very exciting. Being the first female leader and kind of making history, as they say, is extremely exciting, and just something I guess I never really thought I was going to do. And then to be acclaimed for my second time, as I was also acclaimed as deputy mayor, it's just this real surreal feeling that I just never really expected to happen. So it's very exciting right now.
And what's your vision for the town as you step into this role now?
So I'd like to continue what we've been working on in our town. We have a lot of projects going on, a waterfront area that's being redeveloped to create a tourism area. So I want to see us continue with a lot of the big projects that we have. But it's really important to me that even though we're a developing community and we're probably one of the fastest growing in Windsor-Essex County, that we don't forget our roots and we don't forget the residents who have been with us for 40 plus years. So that's really important over the next 4 years, is to find a way to balance that, where we welcome new people to our town and create new things for everyone, but at the same time not forgetting about what people really love about our town and why they came here.
Mm-hmm. And just on a personal note, we hear so much about the importance of representation and seeing women take on key leadership positions like this. So what's been your driving force to get here?
Representation matters. So when I ran in 2010, I ran because I was a young mom. and I had 2 young girls, and I felt at that time we weren't being represented on council. There was only one other female on council at the time, and I just really felt that we needed to have that diversity on council, and that's why I originally ran in 2010. So now, I mean, I'm very fortunate to be there 3 times, but last term we actually had 3 females on council. And I think it's really important because we have a diverse perspective than males, but so do people of different ages and different races. So representation matters for everyone. Having a council that is young and old and, you know, different backgrounds, it's extremely important to make sure we're representing everybody in our community.
And you've been in politics for about 12 years now. So what has it been like for you to be a woman in politics?
I've been very fortunate. So I've worked with 2 wonderful mayors, Mayor Antea and Mayor Bondi, and they both were willing to let me learn as I went along, you know, giving me the guidance that I needed, but really being supportive of me and who I was and my vision and what I wanted to work on during my time on council. And you know, I've been very fortunate. I haven't had any pushback. I've had people just really pushing me forward and helping me get where I am today.
And you've talked about the progress so far, but what more do you think needs to happen so that we can see even more women into these kinds of roles?
So I think the thing is, every generation of women leader will continue to kind of push that ball forward and hopefully bring us to the point where gender bias or inequality are things of the past. There won't be these interviews because, you know, it's the first ever, or we're surprised that, you know, it's taken this long. It'll be something of the norm. And that's just something we have to continue to work on. And every time that there's another woman in one of these positions, I think it really helps the younger generation show them that this is something that they too can do.
Crystal Melash is the Deputy Mayor of LaSalle, and after being acclaimed, will soon step into the role of mayor. It turns out a lizard crawling across the floor of your workplace might be a good sign. Samantha Stewart stumbled across a 5-lined skink in Tecumseh. An expert says it's an exciting sighting, saying it's the only lizard native to Ontario.
I went to put our used boxes here, and all of a sudden I pick up a box and this little guy comes squirming out. I wasn't sure what he was. It's not something you see on the daily. He was so scared, right? So he freaked out and he kind of slid against the floor and squirmed off.
Is there any theories as to how it got here?
So we keep our bay doors open a lot to let fresh air in. He definitely could have, it's all field and grass and logs and everything out back there. So we think he could have been under there and maybe got scared away from hearing the vehicles or hearing us and worked his way inside here.
This is definitely a 5-line skink. This is Ontario's only lizard. Very blue tail in this photograph, which is kind of nice. My understanding is that skinks will lose that intense color as they get older. So that blueness would kind of indicate this is maybe a younger skink. Well, it's a reason to be excited because I think in Ontario, especially Essex County, we've seen the return of so many macro species, which is a good sign of quality of habitat. It's a good sign that there's enough habitat. It's a good sign of water quality. 5-line skink used to occur throughout Essex County and actually most of southwestern Ontario. There's still 2 known populations. One is the Carolinian population, which is where we are, and the other is what they call the Southern Canadian Shield. The areas that were sandy in Essex County, so for example, the Ojibwe Prairie had 5-line skink. I think all of these populations now are extirpated. It's a fancy word for locally extinct. So they don't exist in those habitats anymore. And I think Pelee is really the only habitat that is currently continuing to support 5-line skinks in Essex County.
New data from Ontario's chief coroner show a slight reduction in opioid-related deaths during the first quarter of 2022 compared to last year. But the overall numbers throughout the pandemic are still staggering. Dale Manuktuk has the latest.
Everybody has suffered from the tragic losses that we're talking about. And we get caught up on numbers, but these are all individuals. They're all people, they're all human beings, and I don't ever want us to forget that.
From April 2019 to March 2020, the year before the pandemic, 1,559 Ontarians died from an opioid-related death. That number was more than 2,700 for each of the 2 years since. That works out to opioids killing 8 Ontarians every single day. Mental health, limited access to services, and isolation caused by the pandemic are all factors.
It's a huge factor, absolutely. This is a disease of isolation.
Daryl Gebian is a recovering fentanyl addict, 7 years clean, well on his way to rebuilding his life before addiction cost him everything.
I had to stop working as a physician. I lost my freedom. I mean, I was criminally charged. I did 8 months of a 2-year sentence in federal time. What I put my family through, my parents, my ex-wife, my kids.
Gebian says he's lucky to be alive and not just another number on the tally. This year, there's been a 10% drop in opioid-related deaths for the first quarter of 2022.
Even with that 10% reduction, we were still seeing deaths at a rate of 7 deaths a day in Ontario.
Advocates say that further investment into wraparound services like harm reduction, treatment centers, and safe injection sites would help curb the death toll. It's especially challenging in Northern Ontario in places like Thunder Bay, where the death rate is 4 times the provincial average.
There may be socioeconomic reasons, drug supply differences, the fact that, a lot of the harm reduction services that are provided and are funded and available across the province are designed and made available in urban settings.
And that report is from CBC's Dale Manuktuk out of Toronto. Another day of high temperatures today, a mix of sun and clouds, and it will be even warmer tomorrow. Dahlia Astry will be here after the break with more. Stay with us. China is suffering under its longest heat wave in decades. For more than 2 months, the weather has been sparking fires and drying up lakes and rivers. Journalist Patrick Falk looks at the trouble caused by the drought and the flames.
Well, reports say that around 1,500 people from more than 500 different households had to be evacuated to safe places because of multiple bushfires across some of the mountainous areas of Chongqing. And there's lots of social media videos circulating showing huge flames ripping through large swathes of land. Authorities say that thousands of rescuers were sent in to fight the fires, and they say the situation is now under control, but the risk is likely to remain so long as this drought continues. Chongqing hasn't seen any rainfall for several weeks now, and of course it's also battling extreme heat. Temperatures there have been hitting above 40 degrees Celsius nearly every day for the past 2 weeks. And I was in Chongqing just a few days ago, and we saw some of the effects of this drought. A lot of the rivers have completely dried up. It's killing crops and affecting fish and other marine life as well. But one of the big concerns is Chongqing, as well as neighboring Sichuan province, are both big producers of hydroelectricity. And to put it simply, no water, no hydropower. So that's something authorities are really concerned about. One of the things they're doing to address that is they're reducing mall opening hours. So malls are only allowed to open from between 4 to 9 p.m. Of course, malls take up a lot of air conditioning, so that's one way they're trying to conserve energy. They're describing this as an urgent situation, and we're seeing different measures being implemented in different parts of the country to address potential power shortages. Notably, in Shanghai, authorities have switched off lights along the iconic Bund in an effort to conserve energy. But that's partly being done also because there's been criticism directed towards the city over these lavish light displays in the middle of these power crunches elsewhere in China. But all of this is really giving the government another headache at a time when it's doing everything it can to boost the economy.
Patrick Falk, CBC News, Beijing.
It is time to bring in Dahlia Ashry now for a look at our weather forecast. Dahlia, a really beautiful, classic August Windsor day today.
That's right, Katerina. And as we heard from Patrick, I mean, conditions in China are pretty dry and hot, but in Windsor, it's all about the humidity and the damp conditions that are going to start kicking in starting tomorrow. So the normal high this time of year is 26 degrees. Windsor sitting at 26 today. Usually the normal low is 15, is sitting well above that at 17 degrees today. The current temperature right now in Windsor is 25 degrees. London, 24, a little bit cooler there in London. But then we have that humidex that cranks up that heat, and it will be over the next few days as well with those damp and wet conditions. So Windsor feeling more like 30 degrees right now, and Goderich 29, and same thing in Kitchener. Now, are we going to be expecting any rain overnight? We'll get to that in a minute. The answer most likely is yes, but more so we're talking about that rain that we're going to be expecting tomorrow. So Tuesday, tonight at around 11 o'clock, it's more so clear skies. There might be some scattered showers, but for the most part, it will be clear. As for tomorrow, as we head into 6 p.m., we start to see that precipitation starting to come through from south of the border, and it really starts to make its way. As you can see here from south of the border, there's that risk of thunderstorm and precipitation activity making its way through, giving us cloud coverage in Windsor and rain conditions in areas like London and Kitchener. As we head into Thursday evening, we start to see that precipitation starting to kick through, and Friday in the morning, as you head into work, you'll see that cloud coverage and a little bit of rainfall right there. Overnight tonight, we start to see temperatures start to cool down. We get a little bit of a break from that heat. Windsor 14 degrees, London 12 degrees, Leamington 14 as well. As for tomorrow, we're going to see that rain. Same thing on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. We get a bit of a break. A great way to kick off the weekend with those dry conditions. 24 degrees, making it feel more like 32 on Friday. And then we have some cooler nights there Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Katerina?
Thanks so much for that, Dahlia.
Thank you.
When we come back, a street calming technique discovered in street art. Stay with us. Welcome back. The Chancellor of Germany has wrapped up his visit to Canada by signing a green energy deal on the East Coast. Olaf Scholz traveled to Stephenville, Newfoundland, with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau today. They visited a wind energy project that will power a hydrogen production facility.
We believe that Atlantic Canada presents a huge opportunity for us, but also for Canada to contribute to a green energy transition.
Hydrogen is seen as a critical part of Europe's effort to reduce its use of Russian fossil fuels. Earlier in the day, Scholz and Trudeau attended a Canada-Germany business event in Toronto. The federal government signed agreements with Volkswagen and Mercedes-Benz, giving the automakers access to Canadian raw materials for batteries in electric vehicles. We have art all over this city, but what if it were used to calm traffic? Winnipeg is spending $50,000 on a project to change people's perception of the roadway. Take a look.
We have our enhanced summer bike routes, and Churchill Drive here is one of them. And we have been monitoring the speeds and traffic volumes on them since they came into force in May. And we saw on some of these enhanced summer bike routes that speeds were still a little high from motor vehicles. And so we were coming up with some different ideas of how we might introduce some temporary traffic calming measures into the street. And this was another way to also beautify and activate the street. We have over 15 artists working on 16 different sites on 4 of our enhanced summer bike routes. And so what we've done is we've painted out some different temporary traffic calming measures. So these approximate permanent style traffic calming measures, but just using paint. So instead of using concrete or asphalt, we're just painting them out as a way to produce a little bit of traffic calming on the street, and well as beautify the street and activate it with some public art. And paint installations was the top choice that came up for us. And so we quickly started putting together a program and reached out to Cool Streets, and it all came together quite fast in the last month or so.
That is really cool. And we know that a lot of people here are passionate about traffic calming and passionate about art. A recipe for something here. That is it for CBC Windsor News. For news anytime, go to our website at cbc.ca/Windsor. Thanks so much for watching and have a wonderful night.